This season on Schmooze with Suze, we are embarking on a tour of icons here in Northeast Florida. What makes here the place and now the time? Well, let's start with what is an icon? An icon is a person or thing widely admired, especially for having great influence or significance in a particular sphere. Do we need icons? And that is what we are going to tackle today. Name dropping is a thing where I'm from. Who saw who at what spot, how one got a hookup for reservations or tickets to a show. But my new city is more substantive. News dropping is the thing here. And for my daily dose of catch-up, it's the smooth stylings and medley of musings by the incomparable Melissa Ross that I sip a cup to stay in the know. So who is Jacksonville's premier moderator, mistress of ceremonies, and all-around Jack Samaritan? See what I did there?
I see what you did there.
Melissa Ross came to host WJCT's First Coast Connect, the Jacksonville NPR PBS station's flagship local call-in public affairs radio program with 20 years of experience in television broadcasting in Cincinnati, Chicago, Orlando, and Jacksonville. During her years in broadcast television, she won 4 regional Emmys for news and feature reporting. Melissa is also an Emmy Award-winning host and producer of the statewide call-in program, The Florida Roundup, heard on public radio stations across Florida. The show features newsmakers and journalists and focuses on issues of importance to listeners across the Sunshine State. In particular, Melissa covers politics, the environment and climate change, and women's issues. The show has won 5 national awards from Public Radio News Directors, Inc. She also leads women's empowerment events through the global leadership organization She Is Fierce, Inc. Hi, Melissa. Thanks so much for being here.
Hi, Susie. Good to talk to you.
So when I think of navigating through the loud noise to the voice of reason in Jacksonville, I think of you.
Wow, well, I'm very flattered to hear you say that.
So
my kids don't think I'm very reasonable, so thank you.
I'll write you a note.
That would be good. That would help me out at home.
I literally ask everyone I've ever given a ride to give me 5 stars on my Uber.
Yeah,
because
right.
my kids have given me -10.
Nice.
So speaking of loud and noisy, what are your thoughts on politics and election season in Jacksonville?
Oh, my goodness. You know, I have to say, one thing you can say about working in journalism in Florida is you're never bored. It's never boring. There's always something going on. But of course, we are right now, as you and I are sitting here talking, early voting's underway in Jacksonville for the mayoral runoff, some other races, very contentious mayoral race. You know, at the statewide level, we've got a governor about to announce for president, most likely. So there's always something happening politically, always.
As far as I can remember, we're going back decades, whether we were blaming the grandparents or if we were blaming for the kids, right? Florida's always been a hotbed of whose fault is it?
Yeah. I mean, I moved down here in the summer of 2000 from Chicago to Orlando. I was working at the Fox affiliate there at the time. So the first major story I was involved with covering was the Florida recount, the 2000 recount.
Yeah.
That was my introduction to Florida. And it's only gotten more crazy and extreme and intense since, with each passing year. It's really just only sped up since then.
Right, and there's so many more ways to access all of those pockets of information. So it used to be one like top 10 on David Letterman, Florida anecdote. What does that look like when you're looking at your show? How much control do you have over content management when it comes to the topics?
100%, honestly, which is fantastic because before coming to WJCT in 2009, I worked, as you said, for a number of years in television. And most of the time when you work in a local television newsroom, you don't have any control over what you're doing. You're just told, here's the story you're covering today. For the most part, that's what happens. Not always, but a lot of the time. And if you're an anchor, well, you're just reading the news of the day. unless you sometimes get the chance to work on a special project or something like that. So when I was offered this opportunity in 2009, I was basically told, here's an hour of radio every day, make something out of it. And you just never get those kinds of opportunities in this business.
True.
So it just seemed really exciting to have the opportunity to create something from the ground up and make those editorial decisions myself and a producer. We work on it together. But yeah, I mean, WJCT always gave me and my little team of people that work on the show editorial control. And that's been fantastic.
So what does your process look like? Because to me, I wait till 9 a.m. and then I go to my laptop and I click the little thing, you're my bookmark, and I hit the thing. Sometimes I call in, I'm Susie from St. John's.
I'll remember that. Now I know, now I can put a face with a voice.
But I listen to it while I'm doing my work, and sometimes I speak out loud. I respond. I often respond. I agree with you. I usually second your motion out loud. My dog, she's nodding her head as well. So having that much freedom and control, what does that process look out when you're working out your monthly calendar, knowing that we have election season, knowing what has happened previously prior to the actual mail-in ballot day? How do you anticipate? How quickly do you pivot?
There's a lot of that goes on. Some segments we book weeks or even months ahead, and those are the less topical ones. They're segments that deal with the arts or health or something that is tied to an event farther down the calendar.
Okay.
Those are easy to book. Where the challenge comes is staying up to the minute every morning with the more topical segments. And so we work on that a lot. We're always discussing what's the most timely thing we could be talking about today and book accordingly. And sometimes, that can result in last-minute changes. Sometimes you're working on the weekend to make sure you have something more current for Monday. It's just something that you just, when you've done this kind of thing for as long as Heather and I have, Heather Schatz is our senior producer, and let me just give her a shout-out. She worked at CBS News in New York, and she's just the best you could ever ask for. So
she's also very beautiful and loves glitter, for those of you who don't know.
Yes, she loves glitter. But when you've been doing this for as long as we have, you kind of know, okay, this is what's going to be, this is what we need to do tomorrow. And most of the time it falls into place.
So a lot of it is unspoken. It's gut instinct, where you have this vibe of where the energy of Jacksonville wants to hear or is interested in digging deeper, and that's where you lean into.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, and sometimes things come to us out of the blue. Sometimes someone will reach out to us and say, did you know about X, Y, Z? You might want to look at this, and things will fall into our lap, and we'll pursue them that way, too.
That is interesting. So you're a mom like me. And I know people say parenting should come with a playbook. But parenting and humaning, in fact, today, I think should come with an app. And it should be an app that automatically updates as fast as life and parenting is updating, because I can't keep up. And the one thing I've always relied on was facts, recorded events. So now, talking about tough topics, how do you navigate the things that you report about during the day with diplomacy, with the conversations you have in the evenings with your children?
Well, I think I think my husband would agree with me that our kids see it the other way around, that they're schooling us.
Kids, move out now while you know everything. It's the smartest you're ever going to be.
No, they really are. I mean, this generation, Gen Z, we've got a 20-year-old and a 17-year-old, and they are very savvy.
Yes.
And they are not shy about pointing out to us where we are just not getting an issue or not understanding the implications of something. They're very savvy kids, and they've been that way, I would say, since 5th, 6th, 7th grade. They've just been, and I kind of second guess this, because when you hand a kid a phone, you are handing them the world, but then you're handing them all the good and bad that goes with that.
With no filter.
Right. And so, in hindsight, I've thought a lot about this. In hindsight, I kind of wish we had waited another year or two, with our youngest in particular, to let her have a smartphone. Because on the one hand, it makes them very worldly and very aware of issues in the world. But on the other hand, you have to make sure that it's not harming them, their mental and emotional health.
Right.
So that's something that we've dealt with. But no, I mean, our kids are smart. They're savvy. They are very aware of the issues that are going to affect them in adulthood. But it's their whole generation. They are a generation that is staring down the face of runaway climate change, gun violence. They made it through this pandemic, and that just completely disrupted their educations. They're a different group. I mean, they have a different outlook, certainly than my generation did, Gen X.
Oh, please.
And that's something else. Like they love to tell me that I'm actually a boomer, and I'll say no.
She's Gen X.
Generation X. We don't like the boomers either.
Can you high five me? We are Gen X hardcore. We have a group of people. We're going to meet in a yurt or something, allegedly. And the difference between us and them is that we want to solve all the problems.
That's right. But
We're not blaming you.
They lump us all together. They think Gen Xers are boomers who had to let themselves in the house by after
latchkey
alone.
kids.
Yeah, that's what they think.
Oh man,
Yeah, they think we're just latchkey kid boomers.
Oh, these entitled.
It's very upsetting.
It is. It's because we gave them the tools to learn all these vocabulary words before they got to 10th grade and studied SATs.
Yeah.
With those phones. It was the phones. They started us with those stupid apps. They said, no, it's good. ABC Mouse. They'll learn education. It'll be educational. And they got us in. But you're right. There is something to be said for giving children the access to everything without first preparing them emotionally.
Yeah. Yeah, and our oldest handled it a little better than our youngest, although she's doing better with it now. But yeah, you've got to be careful with girls, especially. I think, there's this great book, Reviving Ophelia. About, adolescence for girls, and it's so helpful. I mean, you just have to look at adolescence for girls as it's a Category 5 hurricane. Your house is in the eye of a Category 5 for several years.
So let me ask you this. I hear this nonsense about gentle parenting, right? And I keep thinking gentle parenting is great when they're littler than you, but at some point when they're those teen years, and I have an 8 going on 18-year-old girl, and I don't know if maybe it's the maturity is starting younger, right? So you're saying 17.
Absolutely.
I would say that my 8-year-old is watching things where the characters who are 8 or 10 on Disney shows are portraying what I would think of as preteen or teen character traits. So that's what she's developing. And these are age appropriate. I'm looking at PG. Is it that kids today are more mature in their management and handling because the world that we're exposing them to is just so much more high level? Everything is more technological. There's no... Okay, let's just go back, right? Your first job at your first journalism, look it up. What did that look like?
What was my first job in journalism?
No, I said in your first job in journalism, if someone said to you, Melissa, look it up.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Yeah, there was no internet. I mean, that's really what changed everything. The ability to just know anything instantly, and to connect with people from all over the world. I mean, it's just, it changed everything. And then the iPhone in 2007, that further changed the game.
It gave us everything in hand.
Everything's in your hand. And then AI, which is now bearing down on us, that's going to change it all yet again, and I just don't think we're even close to being ready for that.
So talking about girls and the internet and social media and the phones, that's one of my biggest fears when it comes to AI. We started off several years ago disclosing that, we should have to say if things are airbrushed, if they're photoshopped, because of the integrity of what's real and what our youth are turning into. How is AI going to impact that, in your opinion?
I have no idea. I just think that from what I've read and observed so far, we just need to expect the unexpected. And it's going to disrupt a lot of industries, not positively, I don't think. So that's something to keep an eye on, for sure.
So here you are in Jacksonville for over 2 decades now.
Yeah, I still can't believe it.
I know. I'm hitting almost a decade here, and I say often that when my husband got a gig and he said, we're moving to Jacksonville, I said, I don't do Vills and I don't do Bergs.
That's
and I'm
so funny.
madly in love with it here. I see this as a microcosm of what New York City felt like to me when I was little, and I didn't know how big it really could be.
Yeah.
And now that I'm an adult, I'm spotting these pockets in Jacksonville that I have deja vu to New York City. You're from Chicago.
Well, I worked there and I went to school there, but I'm from the Midwest. I grew up in Ohio, but I'm a Midwesterner. So you could think of me as a Chicagoan.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you come to Jacksonville, and from when you got here until now, do you look at this and say, wow, I'm comfortable, I'm happy, I'm not lacking in anything? Or you're like, nah, you know where I still could?
No, yeah, absolutely, 100%. When we first moved up here from Orlando in 2003, I was pretty unhappy. I thought, man, this town isn't me. I don't feel comfortable here.
It's funny you say this town.
Yeah, it felt like... I
said that too, this town.
This town is not me at all. I'm not happy. I don't like this. There wasn't just the opportunity that we see today, the cultural amenities, the shopping, the restaurants, the business development. It's in the last 20 years, it has transformed. It has changed a lot. And yeah, I think that there is so much great happening here now. There are a lot of problems too, but there are a lot of opportunities for a city this size that is growing, and it is growing quite a bit.
Fourth fastest growing city in Florida.
Yeah, so there's so much here that I've seen change and grow and develop in the 20 years. It'll be 20 years this summer that we've been here.
Yeah, so 20 years ago, that would have been right around when the mayor was John Delaney.
I came in just as he was leaving and John Payton was getting elected.
Right.
Yeah.
And so compared to when you came to now, how does the landscape of Jacksonville look to you? Socially, economically, politically?
I have just seen it become more diverse, younger, more crowded, more opportunities, more cultural excitement, if you want to call it that, more cultural happenings. Politically, it's just become more of what I guess I saw when I first got here. The divisiveness that we see across America politically, you see here, obviously, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your kids are being raised here. In that case, what is the most challenging story you've had to cover personally?
Involving kids or just...
In general. I mean, I know that when I look at the stories on the news, sometimes I'll hear something, whether it's involving kids or safety or legislation, but it viscerally will impact me because I think of my own family.
Sure. Yeah, I it's hard to name just one, but certainly everything involved with mass shootings in schools for any parent here is really, really upsetting, because you just automatically think about your own children and know that they're not necessarily safe at school. And I have to say, that I am relieved that our oldest is now in college, and our youngest is actually, not for this reason, for some other reasons. She's completing school virtually next year. But yeah, I mean, that's something that so many parents are worried about. And the Florida legislature has made some reforms to try to improve school safety, but I don't think people of good faith would disagree that we're not there yet. So that's a big worry for parents, of course.
Do you have the same ability to be articulate and diplomatic when you speak to me, when you're with your kids?
No, of course
No,
not.
okay. Just wanted to be clear
Oh my
here.
gosh, no. No, it's like, I mean, I think any parent knows you could have the best of intentions
Right.
to try to reason with your kids about this or that thing, and then you end up doing the same thing that you swore you'd never
Right.
do. You yell at them, or you just get really frustrated with them. You lose your cool. I mean, oh my God, yeah. Like, yes. Although it's better than it used to be. They're a little older now, and when they were younger and fighting with each other or having issues with this or I mean, it can be, this comedian, I think it's Jim Gaffigan. He has a bunch of kids. I think it was him who said, every morning getting them out the door is like the fall of Vietnam. He's like, our house every morning, just picture people getting on the last helicopter out of Vietnam.
Oh my God.
And it's so true. It's like you look back on things and think, how did we live through all of that with them?
It's a struggle every day.
Oh my gosh. I mean, yes. How do you even get through it sometimes is what you say to how am I doing this?
How do you navigate the work-life balance?
Let me give another shout out to WGCT. This is the most family-friendly job I've ever had, by far. Because I've had jobs where you just wanted to cry because you just couldn't manage everything. And I have a job now that involves a lot of work, but it's also very flexible. So if I have to leave to go to take a kid to the pediatrician, or if I have to handle something else at home, or if I have to do whatever, nobody's looking over my shoulder.
There's latitude and autonomy.
Oh yeah, and that is worth its weight in gold. That is worth. I think there was even a study done. That's worth to a lot of employees an extra $20K a year in salary.
True
if
story.
you have that autonomy and that flexibility as a parent and as someone who's juggling a lot of things.
Right.
So I don't take that for granted. That's really special.
It is. It's a huge opportunity.
It's not as though it's always easy, but it's manageable.
So the reason I consider you an icon of Jacksonville, and there are some icons that I have, there's places, there's events, there's movements here, but you are respected, regarded highly, thoughtful, wise, and valued collectively and across.
You're going to make me blush, Susie.
Well,
Thank you.
it's only if I show the video. But it's the truth. There's not been a negative word said, not by guests who had an awkward experience, not by producers who've had to work in conjunction with you on other projects. You're the go-to moderator in one of the most difficult places for people to moderate, in a crowd that's known for being difficult to be moderated around. What advice do you have for journalists who are looking to make that kind of impact?
I just think that you have to just follow the golden rule. Just be courteous. To be courteous, respectful to others. That said, if it's a public official or a candidate, obviously you maintain respect, but you can politely but assertively press them on their positions because they are going to be overseeing taxpayer money. So those people get oversight. That's the role that we perform in this society. But with respect and collegiality, I just think that it's kind of common sense, I mean, and then I always go back to this leadership seminar I attended years ago when I was working at the Dalton Agency. Nat Glover, the former sheriff, was holding this leadership seminar over at JU, and they sent a few of us over to attend it. And he said something so insightful. He said, you have to remember that whatever company you work for, you are representing that company in every context, not just when you're at a company event or in your office. If you're going out to the store at 10 o'clock at night to get a bottle of milk, you're representing that company. And someone's always watching. That's the main thing I remember him saying. Someone's always watching. You may think they're not, but they are. And you have to conduct yourself in a way that you're always a positive ambassador for the company you work for.
That's such excellent advice.
Yeah. And I really did take that to heart, because little did I know when I was attending that seminar that I was going to get this job a couple of years later. And all of a sudden now I'm an ambassador for this company. So you have to always be mindful of that.
So we know you're an ambassador of this company, and we know who signs your paychecks, but who do you work for, Melissa Ross?
Well, I guess I like to think that I'm just working for the community. WJCT stands for Jacksonville Community Television. Of course, we're radio, television, and digital. But it's a community-supported nonprofit, so we're here for the community. We're here to get information out to the community, to connect the community, to entertain, inform. That's what we're all about.
Last question. What has been your proudest accomplishment so far in Jacksonville?
Oh, wow. That's a tough one. I guess I would say I'm proud of the fact that this program, our local show, and the statewide show, the Florida Roundup, have been successful, and that people have responded to them, and that they hopefully have made a positive impact.
I sure think so. And I'm grateful that I have a cup of coffee.
Coffee talk.
That's my dream. That's my dream, to have coffee talk with Melissa Ross.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Oh, my gosh.
I've been practicing saying that. Coffee talk with Melissa Ross. Rolls off the tongue.
Yeah.
Fabulous. I really appreciate you coming to chat with me, and I look forward to speaking with you again.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Melissa's show is on every morning at 9 to 10 a.m., and it replays 8 p.m. in the evening. You can catch it on WJCT.org, and her weekly roundup is each Friday. You can catch it on NPR here in the Sunshine State.